Are you a small business owner struggling to nail down your brand voice? Have you hired copywriters only to discover they couldn't capture your messaging? If that sounds like you, then you need to download my free resource, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Once you complete these simple steps, you will have a solid foundation for producing your business copy, whether you decide to write your own content or outsource it to a professional, like, say, me. As an added bonus, you'll be automatically subscribed to my email list, where you can learn more about my writing services and receive weekly updates about my podcast, Emotional Abuse is Real. Head over to the link in the show notes to grab Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps today. Trigger warning, this podcast episode features discussions of emotional abuse and predatory behavior in multi-level marketing companies. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Emotional Abuse is Real. I'm your host, Serene Leeds. I'm a professional writer and storyteller, and I'm so glad you're here. On today's episode, we're talking more about emotional abuse in multi-level marketing companies with my guest, Luana Barajas. Luana lives in Southern California. She's a mom to 3 kids, works full-time as a middle school teacher, and she recently published her debut novel, V. Luana and I connected over Instagram because we're both moms to neurodivergent kids, and she is undoubtedly one of the coolest people I've met recently. So you can imagine how excited I was when she agreed to come on the podcast. Luana is here today because she has a compelling story about the time she spent in an MLM, which we'll get to shortly. Because as always, before we get into the episode, I have a few quick announcements. Please make sure you're following me on Instagram at Serene Leeds Writes. That's SarenLeedsWrites. And that you're subscribed to this podcast on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Also, don't forget to support Emotional Abuse is Real by leaving a 5-star rating and by writing a review over on Apple Podcasts. If you're interested in sharing your emotional abuse experience on this podcast, please either DM me on Instagram, email me at hello@sereneleadswrites.com, or fill out my quick and simple application form. I've left links to my Instagram, email, the show's application form, and my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps, in the show notes. Since I've already delved into the predatory nature of MLMs, today's episode brings yet another serious problem to light. And that's the way predominantly white MLMs engage in performative allyship with their BIPOC consultants. As you will hear, Luana has a lot to say on that topic, and I hope you'll listen to every word. Real quick, I realized that I initially mispronounced allyship during our interview. I am well aware of that slip up, and I do apologize for that. Anyway, without further ado, here's my conversation with Luana Barajas. So you joined an MLM for a time, and from what you told me, it sounds like it was awful. You were constantly pressured not to take no for an answer and to constantly recruit other people. You also mentioned that this MLM exhibited a lot of performative allyship with BIPOC communities, especially with their Latina consultants. So I'd like to turn the microphone over to you so you can share your experience with our listeners. Can you please tell us your story?
Yes. Is it okay to mention the MLM, or are we not doing that?
That's up to you. That I'm open to anything. That's completely up to you. I understand that, some people don't like to do that, but if you're game, do it.
Okay. So, I was a beauty counter consultant, and it all started when somebody that I thought was a friend messaged me and was like, "Hey, I'm a consultant for this great product. Would you like to try it?" And I had just had a baby, And I was like, you know what? At the time, I was like, wow, how sweet of her. Like, she's reaching out. She made me this care package. Like, I was so naive. I was so naive. And I was like all excited and I'm like, yeah, sure. And she brought over the basket and like I loved the products. I thought they were awesome. It felt really nice to like take care of myself. I was nursing, I was exhausted. And then she started like pushing and was like, oh, well, if you like it. No, I made an order. And
Mhm.
then she was like,
Mhm.
well, if you like it so much, you should just become a consultant. Like there's all these
Mhm.
great things and you can make money and like this. And I was like, no, I hate sales. I was like, no, I like the products. I'll just buy from you. And she just kept like messaging me and was just like, I really think like you should become a consultant. Da, 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 da. You're so, and like, oh, you're such a people person and like all this stuff. And I, I think like the products are really expensive.
Mhm.
And I really liked them and I felt guilty about how much I was spending. And so I thought, you know what? I'll become a consultant. I'll sell the minimum and then I can get like discounts on all these great products that I really love. And so I was like, okay, fine. And she's like all excited and starts immediately like just sending me like all the stuff and you have to go through all these trainings.
Mhm.
Um, One thing I will say is compared to other MLMs, their selling like criteria is actually very low.
Mhm.
So I never lost money. Um,
That's good.
yeah. So that was the
Okay.
one thing where I was like, okay, at least like I felt comfortable with that.
Sure.
I had other friends who had already liked the products as well, and they were buying from strangers. And so then when they found out that I was selling, they were like, oh, cool, then I'll just buy from you. So I was
Mhm.
like, I was
Mhm.
always able to make my quota. I got my discount. I was like, okay, nice. But then, so I start taking the trainings and it starts teaching you how to pretty much force people to become consultants. And there was a name that it used. It was like an uncomfortable no or something like the wording was something like that. And it
Yeah.
totally made me think of what my friend had done to me.
Mhm.
And I felt so betrayed. Like, and then as time went on, I realized this person was not my friend and had completely used me to for her business so that she could get ahead. And I just like, and especially, I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but I'm diagnosed autistic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And my whole life, people have done that to me where I think they're my friend and I
Mhm.
get really excited. And as a
Mhm.
child, I didn't have any friends, but as soon as somebody wanted something from me, they would become my friend and they would get what they wanted. And then they would talk about me behind my back or make fun of me or turn on me. And I was always left being like, what happened? I thought we were friends.
Mhm.
And it brought that feeling back to where
Yeah.
I had trusted that person and I thought she was my friend and I thought she wanted to get closer to me. But all she wanted was for me to add on to her numbers and her money.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I can tell you from experience that happens to neurotypical people too. Like I mean what you just described, I'm just like, oh, you mean like my entire childhood?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I have written an article. It was from a few years ago and I send it everywhere. And it's called Why I've Given Up Trying to Make Friends. I feel you.
Making cool connections, even though we live very far away. I do love New York. I need to visit you.
Come see us. Come
And then
see
you
us.
can
I mean,
come visit me in California.
I would love to, because I'm embarrassed to say how long it's been since I've been in California. It's sad how long it's been. Absolutely. I know. Like listeners, Luana and I have bonded because I don't know what the appropriate term is, but let me put it this way. I have a Juyorican daughter. I don't know what you call your kids.
You know what? I don't know. I don't have. I just tell them they're Mexican and white. I don't have a fancy little name.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I did not come up with Juyorican. That came from my husband because my husband's Puerto Rican. But I just love how we have found so many different things to bond over. So anyway, and just real quick, it's totally fine. Like I said, it's totally fine if you mention the name of the company, because for people who've listened to this podcast, I'm always mentioning where my emotional abuse happened. It happened at Rolling Stone. I just don't name my boss. So anyway, and I'm sorry to the person who wrote me an awful review and called me narcissistic. I'm sorry if that was narcissistic.
So ridiculous.
That's how I relate to people.
I've noticed that we'll talk about this later, but I wrote a book. But when I get bad reviews on my book, it's because I struck a nerve with somebody. You offended them in some way. They felt called out by what you said, which means they're probably in the wrong. And so, of course, what you wrote must be trash.
Every individual has unlimited amount of magic and potential in them. Unlimited. They just haven't discovered it yet. Through philosophy, you get closer and closer to finding that magic. And when you do, you fall in love with yourself. You fall in love, and then you, in turn, fall in love with the world. And then you no longer are being oppressed by the world or changed by the world or influenced by the world. You start influencing the world.
Like you said, you called them out.
Yeah.
So, I'm so sorry that you went through that with your friend. So, all right. So you came to that realization. So what happened next?
So when she continuously kept pushing me to get consultants under me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had very good friends asking me, do you think I should become a consultant? And I told them, look, here's the truth of it. I honestly feel very icky about collecting consultants under me. If you would like, and I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for this. A contract with them anymore, but
you can say whatever you want. If you don't have a contract, if you don't have an NDA, you can say whatever you want. It's completely up to you.
So I kind of was like, hey, if you want to just buy products from me and, tell your friends about me, like, I'm cool giving you my discount. I don't care. I'm just doing this to get the discount and to make the sale quota so I can keep getting my discount. And they were like, really? Are you sure? Like, you really don't want me to become a consultant under you? And I'm like, if you, and they were all friends that were just like me. They have kids, they have full-time jobs. I'm like, if you're not super passionate about it and you're just doing it for the discount, girl, I'll give you the discount. I'm not here to make money off of my friends. It's a flawed business model. Like all those women that are making all that money, like they're making money off of, they're preying on other women. And that really bothers me. And it's like, and if I didn't like this product so dang much, I still use some of my, like, I have makeup from them that I love. And I'm like screaming. Because they make a good product.
See, it's so funny because one of the reasons why I became fascinated with MLMs is because a couple of people were trying to sell me essential oils. And I was like, and I'll call them out, Young Living. It was Young Living.
Oh, yeah.
And even to this day, I always look at the oils and I'm like, those look so great. But then, of course, I did my research on the company and I was like, no, absolutely not. I am not giving them any money. So I get how you're feeling this.
Yeah.
I totally, this is why I decided to do this series on the podcast, because I have been fascinated with this topic for years.
Well,
I feel like, and it's so easy for people to get lured in.
Yes. And I think it's part of that manipulation. And I think I remember after all this happened, someone asked me, like, if they were really that awesome of a company, why don't they just be a normal company and sell in Target? Or, you know, like, why have to do it MLM style if your product is good?
Yeah.
And it's and like you watch the founder talk and she's like, because I'm giving women a chance to like uplift themselves. And it's like, no, because you're making billions of dollars off of us.
Exactly.
You're making so much more than you would in a different way.
Exactly.
So, okay. So I never signed a consultant under me. Because it just, and I would tell my friends, honestly, I had a friend who was I became friends with someone who was a consultant, who was a Black woman, amazing person. And I said, you know what, if you really want to become a consultant, sign under this person. Like, she's amazing. I would much rather uplift her, you know. Black women, they need to be given all the reparations, all the support before me.
Yeah.
So if you really want to, I'd feel best about it if you signed under her. And I sent a few people her way. But I did not feel comfortable signing anybody. I did not feel comfortable pulling anyone into that. So I never did. And then eventually the person I had signed under, her and I stopped talking. So and then she left Beauty Counter. So I don't even know what happened with her.
Interesting.
Yeah. But we were no longer speaking. The only reason I knew was because they contacted me and were like, oh, the person above you has left. So we're transferring you to be like underneath somebody else. Because, you know, someone has to make extra money on me.
That's how that pyramid works, man.
Yeah. So then one thing I had noticed about the company is that a lot of the women in it were very conservative. A lot of really conservative Catholic women, Christian women with a lot of kids, a very beautiful aesthetic. The Instagrams that are all beige. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
They only linen touches their skin.
Right.
And I always found that a little interesting. I was like, that's so interesting. And as I continued with the company, I noticed they started to try to branch out. They started to try to get more queer consultants. Like for Pride, they were like, if you're queer, contact us and we'll showcase you for Pride. No extra money offered. You know, nothing offered for being their model, for being their spokesperson. You're getting exposure.
Yeah.
And then they started asking for more Latina consultants. And that they wanted to showcase their Latina consultants that and so I was like, that's interesting because I'm Latina. But once again, they were not offering any money. They weren't offering a stipend or any incentive other than you're getting exposure. And then the whole thing happened with Trayvon Martin.
Hey everyone, it's Serene here in the editing room. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to clarify that Luana was referring to the murder of George Floyd in 2020 in this particular instance. Sorry for the interruption, and now back to the show.
Everybody was up in arms. And Beauty Counter was like, oh my gosh, we are going to be donating a big portion of we're going to be donating a big amount to Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
And their consultants, their racist consultants came out of the woodworks and were like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Da, da, da. And all of a sudden it went away. And you couldn't
Interesting.
see, I was researching. I was like, what did they donate to? Where did the money go? And then I started writing to the corporate and asking like, where's the money? And they're like, oh yeah. We're still researching. We're still trying to figure out what organization is best. And I'm like, well, I have a whole handful of organizations. Like, here they are.
Yeah.
And nothing came through. And then once again, talking about our Latina consultants, let's showcase you. Da, da, da. And I just was so disgusted. And I'm sure nobody read my letter. But I wrote them this very angrily worded letter. And I said, when I saw that you were going to donate to Black Lives Matter, I was really excited. I was really proud to be part of the organization. And then as soon as you got some pushback, all of a sudden you pulled it away, like grow a backbone.
Yeah.
And this just goes to show that, all you care about is keeping women so that you can make money off of them and you don't want to cause waves. And then second of all, how dare you ask me to be your spokesperson as a Latina woman when you're doing nothing for our community? Okay, you want to have Latina spokeswomen? Then donate money to like charities, and you're also not even offering to pay us anything for parading us out in front and making it look like your company's diverse. The same with your queer consultants. There's a reason why you're not wanting to showcase the majority of your company, which is white women. There's a reason why you're calling out and trying to and then I remember them saying something about like, oh, if you're Latina, make sure you start having bilingual consultations and all this kind of stuff. Because they were trying to tap into an area that they weren't successful in. And I just, once again, was like, I feel so used. That's all that this is I'm just making money for Big Brother, for that woman at the top of the pyramid scheme.
Yeah. They were a company who they wanted to make it seem they were doing all of this, like I said, performative action for their own benefit. It wasn't for you. It wasn't for your fellow Latina consultants.
No. And
it doesn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah. So then that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I quit and I remember when I posted it on my Instagram, I had people that were like very offended by what I said because they liked the company, because they purchased products. And I said, I will be if I am a part of a system that is harmful, I will be the first one to hold them accountable, to call them out.
Good.
And then to talk about how unfortunate it was that I was part of this system. And that's what I'm doing right now. And I will still admit, I freaking love their products. I've never, I'm still making I have my eyeshadows that are not as nice that I use for everyday wear. Then I have the ones that I bought when I was a consultant. When was that? Like 4 years ago? Those are my special.
My goodness. Oh my God. That's so crazy. Oh, listen, two things can be true.
Yes.
You can it's fine if you still like the products, but you can also speak out. So you left.
Mhm.
Good on you. Did you experience any sort of shunning from your fellow MLM
Well,
consultants?
the funny thing, interesting.
Mhm.
Because I had been so adamant about not having consultants, that I was very isolated. Like I had
Okay.
no friends that were consultants. Um,
Okay.
I was like, I was the black sheep. I was just nobody. I refused to make friends with anyone in the organization because everybody else had drank the Kool-Aid. And so when I would talk to people and they'd be like, "Oh, it's so amazing. Like I'm making so much money, this and this." And I'm like,
Right.
"This is bullshit. Like I
Mhm.
get eyeshadow and I'm getting a discount." And so
Yeah.
I couldn't be friends with people because I saw the company for what it was and it was so stupid to me. The one
I
thing
think
that
that was really smart. I
yeah,
think that was really smart because I know that a lot of people, when they leave, everyone like shuns them
yes.
and are like, you know, you've let us down.
Well,
You're a traitor.
the
So
funny thing is I have
yeah.
made a couple of friends because I was in groups who were
Yeah.
BIPOC.
Mhm.
And as soon as I spoke out, they messaged me and were like, "I have been feeling really icky about all of this too. Thank you for speaking out. I'm going to leave as well."
That's great.
Yeah. So so
Oh,
it was I guess kind of the opposite where I
mhm.
gave
Great.
other consultants that were in my situation a voice and made them feel comfortable being like, "Okay, I'm not crazy. I'm being gaslit into thinking I'm being too sensitive. This is
Mm.
icky."
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad to hear that you at least inspired some people to leave.
Mhm.
I'm so happy to hear that. So, did you have any sort of a healing journey after leaving?
I was really angry
Mhm.
and I don't I feel like I guess what I just was like, "Okay, well, I'm never joining an MLM again." Like, and I guess it just taught me to trust my gut,
Mhm.
which I've always tried to do, but like that
Sure.
whole uncomfortable no thing, like the fact that I said,
Yeah.
or an uncomfortable yes, I think that's what it was called. But
Mhm.
like the fact that I didn't want to do it, I didn't feel comfortable, but then I said yes, even though I still wasn't cool with it. Like I was like, you know what? I need to listen to myself. I need to
Mhm.
not care about what other people think and not be worried about losing a friend if
Mhm.
they're not going to like me because I won't do this with them. Like that's stupid
Yeah.
and that's not a friend.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
guess it just taught me more about like how to have boundaries and to make sure that I'm comfortable with what I'm doing.
Good. Good. And that's so important. So, what red flags would you tell people to keep an eye out for if they might be, if someone might try luring them into an MLM?
I feel like if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what perks they tell you. They always say it is so easy. It is, oh my gosh,
Uh-huh.
it's
Yeah.
like it's not going to be any work at all for you. I'm going to do
Right.
everything. Like if
Right.
your instinct is to say no, stick to that.
Yeah.
Because if they feel you hesitating, that's what they trained us. If they feel you hesitating, then they're like, oh, okay, there's an in. Like there's a
Mhm.
chance I can convince this person because it's not a hard no.
Mhm.
Will
Mhm.
do whatever they can and they'll bring you more products. And so if you're not feeling good about it in any way, don't do it. Don't do it. And then
That's great advice.
you have the I have known other people that do MLMs where like the quotas are ridiculous. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing about Beauty Counter was the quota was really small. So I never lost any
Mm-hmm.
money.
Right.
But oh my gosh, I have known people to get into debt because of what the quotas
Yeah.
are. And then they have
Exactly.
closets full of product that they can't move. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And maybe in the beginning they were making money, but then they've exhausted all their friends and family. No one wants to buy anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's the other thing is like, okay, if you're going to do it like how I did for the discount,
Mm-hmm.
well, calculate, like really sit down and be like, am I going to go into debt for this? Like I said, I already had a few friends who were already buying the product, and I sat down and I was like, okay, well, like, what do you usually buy? You know, and they were like, oh, well, I'll get this and this and this and this. And I calculated it and I was like, okay, that's enough for me. And what I buy, that's enough for me to
Yeah.
make my yearly quota, and I won't lose any money.
Right. Right.
So be smart about it. Like you're not
Yeah.
nobody's going to get rich off of this. Um, like no one, like I heard people saying they were going to quit their day job, and like, no, that's
That's why I'm doing this
not going to
podcast.
happen.
That's why, yeah, exactly. There's a book, I don't know if you've read it, by Emily Lynn Paulson called Hey Hun, and she was actually successful in
Mhm.
MLMs, and the pressure that people of her caliber are put under. The line was, retire your husband. Like, convince your husband to quit his job.
Oh my gosh.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrifying. And I'm just so glad that you were able to see what was happening, see it clearly,
Mhm.
and that you didn't lose any money.
Mhm.
And so I'm so happy to hear that. And just any further advice that you would want to give to anyone who is involved in an MLM, or, you know, trying to maybe get out or thinking about joining one.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're wanting to get out, just get out.
Yeah.
Don't worry
Yeah,
if you lose the friends. Don't worry if people are like, then they're not really your friends.
exactly.
And I know a lot of people too. They're like, well, I'm just waiting to like make my money back. Like, oh, just cut
Right.
your losses.
It's,
You're
yeah,
just
it's
gonna
not going to
keep
happen.
digging yourself deeper.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it, like I said, if you're thinking of joining one, really do your research,
Yeah.
and only do it if you're like super gung ho into it, and make sure you're not going to lose money off of it.
Yeah.
Because none of us real people are quitting our day jobs for these things.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
I'm sorry,
Exactly.
I'm going to tell you can, and it's
No.
um
No.
and then you know, if you're in it and you love it and it works for you, then hey, that's awesome. Like, more power to you. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was a consultant for, I don't know, 2-3 years. And it worked for me. Like,
Yeah.
except for the fact that like I felt icky about that friend who,
Sure.
you know, and then once the performative stuff came out, I was like, oh, okay, hold on now. But in that in between time where I was just buying my product, my friends were happily buying products they were going to buy anyways. Like, it was cool. I didn't,
Yeah.
you know, and I wasn't expecting to make money. I wasn't expecting to quit my day job.
Right. 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 And good. You were smart, because a
Yeah.
lot of people walk in there thinking, this is how I'm going to get rich.
I
And
think you need to be
yeah,
really realistic. And they
absolutely.
prey on people's hopes,
Yeah.
and the whole get rich quick. Like, nothing comes easy.
No.
Nobody quits their, that there's a reason why we're working 40-hour work weeks. Like, if
Yeah.
everyone knew how to do it, then we'd all be rich.
Exactly.
And so that carrot that they dangle in front of you is just, it's it's so unfortunate because
It is,
that's
because they're
why
good at it.
yeah. And that's why they're able to prey on so many women who maybe want to be stay-at-home moms,
Yeah.
who,
Yeah.
you know, have a lot of things going on and can't have like a traditional 9 to 5 job.
hmm hmm The reason why I'm doing this series is because to me, it's like there's so much evidence there, but because of their tactics, which are insidious,
Yes.
we have to raise this awareness because it's so easy for people to be lured in by, you know, the shiny new objects and the
The
promise
promises.
of wealth, and it's just not going to happen. And I've talked about this. Like, I almost let it happen because someone was trying to get me, trying to lure me into Young Living. And I was like, ooh, I like those oils. I like the way they smell. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I'll get a discount, even though I have to spend several $100s. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, do you watch Schitt's Creek?
Sure do.
The episode on the MLM.
Yes.
One side of town sold to the other side of town, and they say that. They're like, it got insidious real quick.
And I was posting on Instagram. It's very brief, but there is a moment in the latest season of The Bear where, yeah, it's an episode. It's the episode devoted to Tina, and she loses her job, and she's like, she's pounding the pavement. And then there's one scene where she's sitting like in, at like this lecture, and you see this guy, and it's like, it's not Herbalife, but it's like supposed to be Herbalife. And she's like all excited. And then she hears that she has to buy in, and she walks out. And I was like, go Tina. I was so happy. I was like, Tina, you did the right thing. Walk yourself over to the beef. You'll be a lot happier. Yeah. So I'm glad that, you know, TV shows are catching on, but I did not know what MLMs were until like maybe 4 years ago. So, and I'm fascinated with them, and I'm just doing what I can to raise awareness about them. So, Luana, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell the listeners how they can connect with you and also about your book.
So you can actually, I have 2 social media platforms. One is at So Little to Do. And that one is very much like my mom journey. I'm really into like environmental activism. Just a lot of different kind of activism, Black Lives Matter, LGBTQIA plus rights, indigenous rights, like all that kind of stuff. And then my other platform is Aura Marquez Author. And I'm sure you'll put the actual handle because it has underscores and all that.
Of course, in the show notes. Yes.
I'm also a writer. And so I self-published a book under my pen name, which is Aura Marquez V. And it is about something that is dear to your and my heart. Well, one of the topics, but it is about an autistic, queer Chicana vampire.
I love it. I know. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my list. I love it. It's so great.
So I'm a huge fantasy and sci-fi nerd. And I always hated the lack of representation within the genre, especially the vampire genre, which hello, if vampires are eternal, like we're not going to have more sexualities and genders and like people of different races, like what's happening? So my dream was always to write, you know, sci-fi and fantasy speaking of bad comments, I did a book signing and someone was like, well, this book checks off all the woke boxes.
Sorry.
But I wanted to write a book that represented my lived experience. within fantasy and sci-fi. So when people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're just, trying to jump on the bandwagon," it's like,
No.
no, it's me.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's like as if I became a vampire. So if my embodiment, if who I am is woke, then I guess I'm woke. Like, okay. But so a lot of it comes from actual things that have happened to me. She's totally based off of me. People will, like, fans will write to me and be like, I've never read a book where my autistic experience was represented so realistically. Like, she stims the
Yeah.
way I do. The way her thought process is, it's just like mine. It's like, well, yeah, because I just wrote me.
Totally, totally. And I am going to read it because I'm still learning about autism
Mhm.
and about neurodivergence, because I don't talk about it a lot on the podcast, but so my daughter was diagnosed ADHD 2 years ago. We got her twice exceptional and autism diagnosis. This is how new it is. It's literally been a month.
Wow. And it's such
Yeah.
a rare diagnosis too.
Yeah.
So it's so
Yeah.
special to, like, meet other parents that are in the same boat, because it is.
Yeah.
My son's psychiatrist said, you have your work cut out for you. Like, children that are twice exceptional go through a lot.
I know. I just want to thank you so much for being here today, Luana. It's been so great talking to you. And thank you for sharing your experiences with Beauty Counter. And I look forward to talking with you again very, very soon. And I'll leave all of your contact information in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you. It was so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Luana Barajas on Emotional Abuse is Real. If you would like to connect with Luana, I've left her Instagram handles in the show notes. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out via email at hello@sereneleadsrights.com, through Instagram @sereneleadsrights, or fill out my guest application form. Please note that this podcast should not be used as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you are a victim of emotional abuse and need help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START, START, to 88788. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and go grab my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.